Okay, hello everybody. It's now March 1st, 2021, and Philip Lee returning with a new episode of Civil War Chat. Before I forget, click on the upper right if you want on the notification bell to be notified of future Civil War Chat episodes. Today's episode is entitled A Rebel Statue That Dennis Prager Should Defend. Now let me bring up my notes on this. Dennis Prager is a popular, politically conservative commentator and Orthodox Jew who has thrown Confederate heritage under the bus by promoting Ty Seidule's video, Demonization of Confederates and Their Descendants. Prager has also ignored my repeated requests over the last 3 years for equal time. Nonetheless, Dennis may want to defend the rebel statue at Augusta, Georgia, because Berry Benson, the model for the infantryman atop the pedestal, disclosed the false 1914 rape conviction of Leo Frank, who was president of Atlanta's Nay Boo Reeth chapter. 2 months ago, or 2.5 months ago, an Augusta City task force recommended moving the monument. Together with his 16-year-old brother Blackford, Berry enlisted in a South Carolina regiment 3 months before Fort Sumter, when he was 1 month shy of his 18th birthday. After Sumter, the two served in Robert E. Lee's army until war's end. Both refused to participate in the Appomattox surrender and returned to their Augusta, Georgia home after learning that General Joseph Johnston had also surrendered in North Carolina. They were still armed with the rifles that they used during the war when they arrived. Berry missed Gettysburg because he was badly wounded at the Battle of Chancellorsville a month or so beforehand. But otherwise, Berry participated in all of Lee's major campaigns. He was twice captured and twice escaped notorious prison camps, Point Lookout, Maryland, and Elmira, New York. Today's academic historians might, at best, mention Berry's memoir so they can ridicule it for providing Shelby Foote with one of his so-called hackneyed anecdotes in the 1991 PBS Civil War documentary, and ignore Berry's postbellum social progressivism. In other words, they would want to poke fun at Berry's memoir for just because his dad owned 2 slaves, but they would ignore Berry's postbellum progressivism. For example, even though he was the dominant accountant for Augusta's textile mills after the war, Berry became Berry backed their unpaid workers in a 1899 labor dispute. One local newspaper identified Berry as, quote, perhaps the most ardent sympathizer the strikers have, close quote. He leveraged business connections to get some of the workers hired in Atlanta, where the Georgia Railroad agreed to transport them for free. That's all under Berry's influence. The striking union then invited Berry to go on an arbitration panel that finally settled that 1899 strike. But it is Berry's role in the 1914 Leo Frank case that puts modern progressive academic historians on the horns of dilemma. If they condemn him, they may be criticized as anti-Semitic. But if they praise him, they risk accusations of racism because, after all, this 18-year-old boy's dad owned 2 slaves. He could be nothing but evil, right? Too many academics are accustomed to monopolizing such denunciations, which they dishonestly use to try and shame into silence anyone who challenges their interpretations of the Civil War and Reconstruction. That is exactly what Dennis Prager is doing. Leo Frank was a Cornell-educated Jewish engineer who moved to Atlanta in 1908 when he was 24 years old, and he married a local girl 2 years later. When managing a local pencil factory in 1913, a 13-year-old girl worker was found raped and murdered in the basement. A month later, Frank was charged with the murder and convicted after a 25-day trial. Berry followed the trial from Augusta with interest because one of his son's boyhood friends, William Smith, represented the black janitor who was a key prosecution witness against Frank. Notwithstanding that Smith had become a black civil rights advocate under Berry's mentorship, Berry doubted the handyman's testimony. The janitor claimed that Frank paid him $200 in cash the very night of the murder as hush money and to assist in the body disposal. The false conviction earned the janitor a light sentence. As an accountant, Berry felt that $200 at that time was too much money for a factory manager in Georgia to have on hand on a Saturday night. He traveled to Atlanta, where he lodged with the Smith family and, together with Smith, questioned the janitor the next day. After checking the books, Smith learned that the pencil factory had only $26 on hand the night of the murder. Berry further learned that the murdered girl could not have arrived at the factory as early as the janitor testified. After returning to Augusta, he corresponded directly with Frank. He also published a pamphlet at his own expense detailing, quote, 5 arguments, close quote, that question the prosecution's case. This put him in a media duel with Tom Watson, a newspaperman and former congressman who was convinced of Frank's guilt. Eventually, Governor John Slatton commuted Frank's death sentence to life imprisonment, expecting that he could later pardon Frank when tempers cooled. In order to protect Frank, the governor ordered that the prisoner be transferred to Milledgeville. That enraged Watson, who wrote an article demanding an investigation for that act. Consequently, a vigilante group formed in the girl's hometown, caravanned to Milledgeville, broke into the jail and lynched Leo Frank on August 17, 1915. Despite his doubts about the black janitor, Berry Benson's family lived in a racially integrated neighborhood, and he experimented with regional mushrooms in search of a cheap food supply for Southern blacks. Benson also became a cryptography expert whose assistance with Spanish codes during the Spanish-American War was repeatedly turned away by federal bureaucrats who falsely assumed he was merely trying to sell them a code and thereby make money. All he wanted to do was help. In 1877, he served as the model for the common soldier atop Augusta's Confederate monument. Contact me, Philip Lee, if you want to know how to fight back against Prager and Seidule. You can contact me at my email, Phil, P-H-I-L _Lee, L-E-I-G-H at me.com. You can also, let me pull up my picture here. You can also buy some of my books. The latest one, Causes of the Civil War. It's $22 on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can get it directly from me, an autographed copy for $25. Just email me, give me your postal address. You can pay PayPal, credit card, check, whatever. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.